So today students, I'll continue with placenta. So what type of structure it is? So in the last class, I want to briefly explain first what happens to the blastocyst after it gets implanted. So blastocyst, it will have the outermost flat cells. So this outer layer of flat cells, this is called as a trophoblast, and inside will be group of cells called as ICM, and this is a cavity that is called as a blastocele. So this was the structure of blastocyst. Now this one, blastocyst, will undergo transformation. It will transform into the next stage of the early embryo, and that is called what? That is called gastrula. Okay, so gastrula, the process of formation of gastrula is called gastrulation. So what is gastrulation is when the blastocyst will transform itself into gastrula, then it is called as gastrulation. Okay, before formation of gastrula, an intermediate bilaminar disc is formed. So again, this is the outermost layer of flat cells, outermost layer of the flat cells, and this is the trophoblast, and this is the ICM, the inner cell mass, also called as embryoblast cells. These embryoblast cells are stem cells, and they are also called ICM, inner cell mass. They will start migrating or moving, and such type of cell movements, due to cell movements, what happens? Blastocyst is forming gastrula, and gastrula will have three germ layers. The ICM cell will migrate, movement of the cell occurs. Those movements are called as cellular movements, you can tell, or morphogenetic movements. Cellular movement or morphogenetic movement occurs. Now these ICM cells will move and arrange themselves here to form two layers. Okay, one is called epiblast and another is called hypoblast. Since two layers are there, they are called as bilaminar disc. So bilaminar disc it is called. Okay, the bilaminar disc is formed. Now further cellular movement occurs, further morphogenetic movement occurs, and the two-layered bilaminar disc is converted into a gastrula that has three germ layers, that is ectoderm, endoderm, and mesoderm. That means three germ layers will appear in an early embryonic stage called as gastrula. So here also what continues is cell movement continues. Movement of the cell will continue. Cell movement will continue. The epiblast cells will first replace the hypoblast cells. Okay, so if this is the epiblast cells, they will migrate and replace the hypoblast cells. Now consider that the epiblast cells have replaced the hypoblast cells to form what is called the endoderm. So therefore, this is the first layer formed. First germinal layer formed is a endoderm due to migration of cells from epiblast and replacing them, and they replace a hypoblast. Further cell migration continues. So cell will migrate from primitive state. It will continue in the middle also, and therefore a middle layer also is formed here. So a middle layer also formed. So along with it, middle layer also is formed. And this middle layer will be the mesoderm. And finally will be epiblast that will differentiate ectoderm cells. So epiblast, which was here, that also will, the cells will form the ectoderm. So this is the last one formed, that is the ectoderm. So these early cells will ultimately differentiate into three germ layers, that is ectoderm, mesoderm and endoderm. And of course, this is a trophoblast cell. It is understood from the previous diagram. This is the trophoblast cells. Got? Endodermal cells continue to divide and form a cavity, and this cavity is called as the yolk sac. Whereas the epiblast cell, also the ectodermal cells which have originated from epiblast cells, they also divide and form a cavity here. This cavity is called as amnion. Okay. Then as this as development, as the early embryo develops, a cavity is formed surrounding this uh, gastrula, and that is called extraembryonic coelom. And also there also extraembryonic mesoderm starts forming. Okay, so therefore what happens, finally three germ layer containing gastrula is formed. Okay, this process where blastocyst is converted into gastrula, this is called as gastrulation. Then germ layers, like if I say ectoderm, ectoderm in future after development can give rise to various parts of the body. It can be say brain, the spinal cord, which together forms the central nervous system, and all the structures associated with them. Now mesoderm, it is going to form bone, cartilage, muscles, it is going to form coelomic epithelium, gonads, etc. Whereas endoderm can form epithelium of mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine and large intestine, and epithelium of respiratory system. It is like the alveoli, the bronchus, the trachea and bronchioles, all will be endodermal in origin. The epithelium of pancreas also is endodermal in origin. And even urinary bladder, except trigone area, they are also endodermal in origin. Whereas ureter, kidney, spleen and all, they are mesodermal in origin. So here, this was about the ectoderm. What do they give rise to afterwards? Ectoderm. What does it give rise to? Endoderm. What does it give rise to? And of course, the mesoderm. So each, this particular germ layer forms a particular part of the body. So different parts of the body it is able to form. Now I'll continue with placenta. Now what is a placenta? Placenta is structure that is temporarily formed during the pregnancy. Placenta is a physical and physiological connection between mother and fetus. That is the definition of placenta: physical and physiological connection between the fetus and mother. So, physical and physiological connection between mother and fetus is called as placenta. What is the physical connection? It means the embryonic tissue will be part of the maternal tissue. That means, for example, the chorionic villi passes into the decidua to form further, which develops into placental villi. Now, physiological connection means functional connection is the transport of substance, exchange of substances. It can be excretory substance, it can be nutrition. Okay, so functional connection also is there between fetus and mother. And that structure that gives a physical connection and functional connection between the mother and fetus, that structure is called as placenta. So, what happens here during pregnancy? The developing, so this is a fetus developing, so here a disc shaped structure is formed. This itself is the placenta, that is the connection between a mother and this fetus, and arising from this will be umbilical cord and then the developing fetus. Got? So this structure itself will act as physical and physiological connection between mother and fetus. This itself, it is not confined entirely here, but it is confined to only disc shaped area here. And this is what is called the placenta. This is how one can know where the placenta is. Now, next is placenta is a temporary structure. Okay. So, placenta is a temporary structure. What does it mean? It is not permanently part of the body. It is especially formed during pregnancy, that is during the gestation period, you can tell, and afterwards, it after the delivery of the fully developed fetus or after the delivery of the baby, even the placenta is being uh, expelled outside. Okay, so this is also called after birth. So this one placenta is a temporary structure. So after birth of the fully developed fetus or the newborn, even the placenta is released from the uterus. So it becomes a temporary structure. It's not a permanent structure. This placenta will be approximately about 500 grams and it is supposed to be disc shaped. That means when the disc shaped placenta is say removed, it will be circular and in the center comes the umbilical cord. Okay, so this will be the placenta and the structure here will be umbilical cord. Usually arising from the center. So the diameter will be approximately around 22, a max of say 22, like so it is around in around 22 uh, centimeters. So usually at the center it is going to be thick and at the border it is going to be thin and all. So overall it is disc shaped and which is also having a structure umbilical cord. So this is so the same structure you can see now. This one, this disc shaped area, when it is expelled outside, this is going to be the this is how the placenta structure will be there. The next, placenta is also an endocrine gland. The placenta also acts as an endocrine gland. See, you'll know what is an endocrine gland. Usually, those glands that secrete hormones, those glands that secrete hormones are called as the endocrine gland. So, therefore, placenta also secretes certain hormones, which I'm going to discuss at the end of the class, because of which it is also called as endocrine gland. Now, one question is again whether it is a temporary endocrine gland or a permanent endocrine gland. As I already told previously, that the placenta itself is a temporary structure, so also it will be a temporary endocrine gland. So, also it will be a temporary endocrine gland having an ability to secrete hormones. Okay, so this is a temporary endocrine gland. So next is, how is placenta formed? Is the contribution purely by the developing embryo, or the woman's decidua forms the placenta? Where placenta is actually contribution, a structure that is contributed by two structures. Okay, structure contributed by embryo also, developing embryo also, and placenta is also contributed by the decidua of the mother, that is called maternal decidua. So placenta has two parts. Placenta structure is formed by both maternal part as well as the fetal part. So it means human placenta is not just formed by the developing embryo and fetus, or it is not just formed only by the maternal part. It is contribution of both. That means the fetal part and the maternal part together forms the placenta. So here, what is the from the fetal part, which structure establishes connection with the decidua of the mother? So you'll know that as the blastocyst is formed and a gastrula is formed, simultaneously the trophoblast is going to form the syncytiotrophoblast and the inner cytotrophoblast, which later on forms finger-like projections. This is going to form finger-like projections. So how was this? This was implanted here. So consider this was implanted in the maternal decidua. So this is the maternal decidua, and this is the developing embryo, and this is the, that is how it was implanted. So this is decidua basalis, and this is decidua capsularis. Now initially what happens, the trophoblast layer forms finger-like projections. So finger-like projections will develop here. Okay. So as this embryo grows and approaches 8th week, then chorionic villi are formed. So this chorionic villi, so trophoblast and the mesodome, extraembryonic mesodome together forms the chorion, and that is going to form finger-like projections here. This finger-like projection is called as chorionic villi. So what happens? Trophoblast will lead to chorionic villi, and chorionic villi again will be part of what? Placenta. It is actually which part of placenta? The fetal part of placenta. This part becomes what? Fetal part. This part is fetal part. Now, as the same diagram, if you consider, this will be the decidua. So, this chorionic villi will penetrate not the capsularis, but it is going to penetrate into the decidua. So, the decidua becomes the maternal decidua becomes the part of. So, maternal part is nothing but maternal part consists of decidua. The maternal part consists of decidua. It means from the developing fetus, it will be the chorionic villi, and from the maternal part, it will be the decidua, especially the decidua basalis. So together forms a intricate connection and forming a structure called placenta. Okay, that is acting as a connection, physiological connection between mother and structural as well as functional connection or physical and physiological connection between mother and fetus. So this is about the placenta. How did it is contributed by? How is contribution? I mean, what is called? How is it contributed? How the placenta is formed? So contribution of. Okay. So next is from which the different ways in which the placenta is described in human beings. So different terms are there to describe a placenta in human beings. So we will learn those terms now. So again, I want to just tell. So this is suppose the decidua basalis, decidua capsularis, and the developing embryo. This is going to form chorionic villi. So chorionic villi becomes the fetal part, and this becomes the decidua becomes the maternal part. So together, these two together forms the placenta. So now chorionic, there are different ways in which the placenta is described. So placenta, human placenta can be called chorionic placenta. Human placenta is called as chorionic placenta. As I already told that the fetal part of the placenta basically consists of the chorionic villi. And how did chorionic villi, that name came? Because it is actually developed from chorion. So since placenta is developed from chorion in human beings, primarily from a chorion, then therefore it is called as chorionic placenta. Whereas umbilical cord might be contributed by certain parts like blood vessels can be contributed by allantois, but basically the placenta primarily is contributed by chorion. So therefore it is called chorionic placenta. How about other animals? Other animals other than primates, like mammals other than the primates, they are called eutherians. Their uh, their placenta can be also contributed by allantois and chorion together. So it means allantois also plays a role in certain animals in formation of placenta, as I told, eutherians. Now in certain animals, it is not the allantois or the this thing, but it is yolk sac that is going to contribute in forming a placenta. So again, chorion and yolk sac. So like marsupials, where yolk sac forms the placenta. So if you see in this way, almost all of these extraembryonic membrane contribute in formation of placenta in animals. All the animals as a whole, if you consider. For example, chorion can contribute in formation of placenta. Allantois can contribute in formation of placenta, and yolk sac also can contribute in formation of placenta. But there is one layer that does not contribute to formation of placenta, and that is amnion. So in any of these animals, amnion will not contribute in formation of placenta. So therefore here in human, it is basically primarily in majority of almost all of its part are contributed from chorion. That is the placenta part is contributed by, whereas umbilical cord, certain blood vessels are passing to it, still can be contributed by say allantois, which may not be so much functional in human beings. So second way in which the placenta is described, or also name is given for the placenta, and that is metadiscoidal placenta. So what is metadiscoidal placenta? Now, in uh, in a pregnant woman, when a placenta is formed, you know that placenta will have chorionic villi and later on placental villi it will have. The chorionic villi later on is called as placental villi. Initially, those villi will be surrounded everywhere here in the womb. But later on, they become confined only to the disc shaped area. Okay. Now the villi as well as the placenta gets confined only towards the disc shaped area. Such type of placenta is called as metadiscoidal placenta, confined to only disc shaped area. Okay, such type are called as metadiscoidal placenta. So it's not everywhere, it is only in the disc shaped area within the uterus where the placenta is present. So next is hemochorial placenta. Human placenta is also called hemochorial placenta. So here what happens? For example, the chorionic villi has been well developed and now it is called as placental villi. So this is the highly branched placental villi. Okay. So similarly, such type of villi are also going to be there. There is no just one placental villi. So these are placental villi. In between the placental villi, there are some spaces here. In between the placental villi, there are some spaces here. These spaces are called sinuses. These spaces are called sinuses. Okay. So say consider consider this is the fetal part and this will be the maternal part. So maternal capillaries will open into this sinuses. Maternal capillaries, they open into the sinuses and therefore release the blood in this sinus. Similarly, these are called intervillar spaces. Okay, so these are the sinuses or the spaces present between the two placental villi. These spaces are called as intervillar space, and into this intervillar space, what is going to open is the capillaries of the maternal decidua are going to open, and therefore the blood is bathed here in this particular flows into this sinus or space, intervillar space. So this is a maternal blood, and therefore this villi will dip directly into the maternal blood. Since the villi are directly going to dip into the maternal blood, or the villi are going directly bathed by the maternal blood, such type of placenta is called as hemochorial placenta. So this is nothing but the third way in which the placenta of human being can be described. So fourth one, how it is described human placenta is deciduate placenta. Now what is deciduate placenta? So if you consider this is the womb here, so it will have the decidua part. So say this is the decidual part, because placenta is contributed by decidual part, and therefore this is say the fetal part. Thus, when the placenta, after the birth of the young ones, when the placenta also is ejected outside, as it ejects, it will damage certain, it will also take part certain decidual parts, it will take along with it. Why? It is because the placenta is intricately connected with the decidua, or intricately connected to the wall of to the inner wall of the uterus. Since it is intricately connected, when the placenta is going to be ejected along with some of the say for example, the decidua is intricately connected with this placenta. So when placenta is released, along with this part of, there is a damage to the inner wall of the uterus. Okay, that is a decidua. So this, because of this intricate connection, because of loss of placenta as well as loss of maternal inner, there is maternal decidua also, it is called as deciduate placenta. So it's well rooted or intricately rooted. So ejection of placenta will also cause damage and ejection of certain parts of the decidua. As a result, damage and as a result, this kind of placenta is called as the deciduate placenta. So these are four ways in which a placenta is uh, described. So, as I explain now, going further, explaining about the, in short, I'll tell. Basically, you should know trophoblast forms chorionic villi, and chorionic villi is going to be part of placenta. Okay, next, functions of placenta. The first function of placenta. So let me describe first function as nutrition. So placenta provides nutrition. So when placenta provides nutrition means the growing placenta requires energy. So to meet the demands of the energy of the growing fetus, it should be supplied with nutrients. Got? So therefore placenta takes the nutrients from the mother circulation, and those nutrients are passed on to the, through the placenta, are passed to the fetus. So it is like nutrients are passing from the mother through the placenta, because placenta is a connection here, and finally to the fetus. So what passes here is nutrients. These nutrients will not because these nutrients, why are they required? Because the fetus energy demand is there for the fetus. It requires energy for it to develop. For that, it has to take nutrients from the mother. So nutrients from the mother, excuse me, nutrients from the mother will be reaching to the through the placenta, will be reaching to the fetus. Okay, so which are those nutrients? Those nutrients that are necessary for what? Energy. So one of the nutrient molecule which is very basic source of energy here, that can generate ATPs after metabolism, is the glucose. So glucose is one of the nutrients that passes from mother to fetus. And the second one, say amino acids. Amino acids. These amino acids are building blocks of proteins. They are also essential nutrients there. Within this, again, there are essential and non-essential amino acids, because some of them can be synthesized by the body and some of them requires uh, from external supply of those amino acids. So glucose, amino acids, and one more is vitamins. Example, vitamins, glucose, amino acids, vitamins, and say even fatty acid can diffuse through and reach the developing fetus. So you can tell, like, whatever the digestive system and all are still developing, so lot of demand is there for the energy, and that's why the placenta has a role now. It is going to mediate this transfer of nutrients from mother to fetus. Okay, so that will be about how the function of placenta. Now, what will these nutrients be used for? Of course, it is for the development of the fetus or the embryo. It will be for the growth of the fetus also. And it is also for running the metabolic reactions inside the cells of the fetus. So, all that metabolism, growth, development, maintenance, and all for that, it is required. So, that's why it is a kind of acting as a kind of digestive system, you can tell, providing nutrients for the growing fetus. Now, next is, it has a role in excretion. Means you can tell placenta acts as an excretory system also. So it has a role in excretion. It has a role in excretion. It has a role in excretion. Now, what is excretion? When these nutrients like glucose, amino acids, and all are used, nitrogenous wastes are released in the fetus. Those nitrogenous wastes should not build up as they are toxic for the fetus. So, therefore, those nitrogenous waste from the fetus should be returned back to the maternal blood. So, therefore, excretory waste, how does it move? So, excretory waste. The excretory waste, as I told, produced by end product of metabolism after consumption of the nutrients, producing energy when those nutrients are taking part in metabolism. So, end products will be the nitrogenous waste. These nitrogenous waste can also be called as excretory waste. The nitrogenous waste move from the fetus, produced in the fetus, will be again mediated by, that's why a physiological and physical connection we call. Right now, when I say excretory waste, it is doing some functions of physiological connection it is. So fetus, the nitrogenous waste from the fetus moves into the placenta, and then finally it will enter into maternal blood. That means maternal blood should also take, apart from her own nitrogenous waste, it should also contain fetal nitrogenous waste. So these nitrogenous waste contributed by maternal body also as well as fetal body together will be cleared in the maternal kidneys, or you can tell removed in maternal kidneys. So waste removed in maternal kidneys. Okay, ultimately these wastes are removed in the maternal kidneys. So that is also, these all are like when I say digestion, when I say excretion, these all are physiological connection. So this is nitrogenous waste. Now third function of the placenta, will be again another physiological function, that is a respiration. So all the cells are like, most of the cells of the developing fetus will be, majority of the fetal cells will be consuming oxygen. They require oxygen as source of energy. Okay, so in that case, what has to be supplied to the, what has to be supplied is, the oxygen has to be supplied for the fetus, and the CO2 from the fetus has to be, so exchange should occur here, and the interface here is again the placenta. So how does it occur? So oxygen from mother's blood that is O2 from here is going to O2 in mother's blood is going to reach to the placenta, through the placenta, through what? Umbilical cord vein. Of course, it is understood it has to pass through the umbilical cord vein. And finally, O2 is going to reach to the fetus. O2 in the mother's blood through the placenta will reach to the fetus. Where opposite is fetal CO2, the fetus CO2 present in the fetus will be moving CO2 in fetus is through the placenta is going to reach to the now where do this exchange occurs? This exchange will be occurring in placenta. Exchange occurs in the placenta. Got? So that is another function of what is called the function of placenta. Next is storage. Placenta acts as a storage organ which stores food. One of the ways in which food is stored is, example, Let me tell. Example is storage of energy in the form of polysaccharides like glycogen. So, upon glycogenolysis, the glycogen is converted into glucose, which is used as a source of energy. So, placental cells can store the food material in the form of, say, glycogen. So, it acts as a storage organ also. Okay. So, next function of the placenta is it acts as barrier. So, see here, barrier is it prevents mixing or entry of certain substances from outside so that they will not reach the placenta. So, what happens here? This is the developing fetus. So, this placenta will not allow certain substances from maternal circulation to enter into fetus. One of the common ways in which barrier is the maternal and fetal blood is not allowed to mix due to placenta. Okay. So barrier means what? Maternal blood does not mix with the fetal blood. Maternal blood does not mix with the fetal blood. Which structure will not allow it to mix is the placenta. Okay. Then apart from this, placenta can act as a barrier for bacteria. So many of the bacteria cannot easily cross the placenta and reach the fetus. So fetus is protected from the bacteria. But unfortunately, it cannot act as a barrier for viruses. So therefore, viral infections can easily transmit from mother to fetus. It can also not prevent the movement of alcohol. Say alcoholic mother can be affect the fetal development since alcohol can pass this barrier called placenta and then reach the fetus. As a result, it can affect the development of fetus. Okay. Then third is uh, also that placenta sometimes can't stop the certain drugs from passing. So certain medicines that are taken, certain drugs that are taken can easily pass the placenta and reach the fetus and then cause the abnormal development of fetus. Okay. So earlier, one such example of the drug will be one such example is pregnant woman would face a problem of morning sickness, which includes dizziness or nausea or vomiting. To avoid this morning sickness, symptoms of the morning sickness, they were like prescribed or they were advised to take a drug called as thalidomide. Okay, so woman would consume the thalidomide in order to avoid the symptoms of morning sickness. What happens as a woman consumed this thalidomide, but it showed one property that it crossed the placenta and it reached the fetus. The drug molecules reached the fetus. Uh, so what happened? The bad effects on the fetus started. So what happened is the as a mother would consume thalidomide, that would cross the fetus, that would cross the placenta and reach the fetus, and it would cause abnormal development of fetus, where absence of limbs or abnormally shortening of limbs and all can occur. This condition is called phocomelia. So what happened is the fetus started suffering with phocomelia. That means the newborn will have totally abnormal hands or sometimes absence also. So this condition where abnormal hands and legs limbs are present, that is called as phocomelia. Due to occurrence of phocomelia, this drug was banned. So it means that it is acting as a barrier but for not for all substances. because of which fetal is vulnerable for certain substances that can pass the placenta. So next is immunity. So what is immunity? Immunity is nothing but prevention of formation or prevention of occurrence of disease. So the developing fetus immunity is not well developed. The developing fetus immunity is not well developed. It means that it can get the diseases. Then how come fetus will not get the growing fetus will not get the diseases? The immunity is provided by the mother. One of the molecule of immunity will be antibodies. They're also called immunoglobulins. These molecules are synthesized by in the mother's blood circulatory system by, of course, by the plasma cells, and they then pass from the mother through the placenta to the fetus. There are many types of and there are many types of antibodies, but out of that only one passes from mother to fetus. So one of the immunity molecule is what? IgG. IgG from the mother is going to pass through the placenta, and reach where? Reach the fetus. Now, as it passes and reaches to the fetus, this is a molecule of immunity. It will protect the fetus against the disease. Okay. So, because this IgE transfer from mother through the placenta to the fetus, the IgE present in the fetus, the IgE which got transferred in the fetus, they are going to protect the fetus such that it is not going to get diseases, and therefore prevention of occurrence of disease itself is immunity. So therefore it has an important role of immunity also. Okay, that is the function of placenta. Then seventh is it acts as temporary endocrine gland, which I have already mentioned at the beginning of this class. So I shall take separately the endocrine function of placenta. The placenta is going to act as a temporary endocrine gland. So far as there it is present during the gestation period, it continues to be an endocrine gland. But after parturition, even the placenta is going to get ejected. So why do you call? First thing, it produces hormone. That's why it's called as endocrine gland. That's why it's called as endocrine gland. Let me mention some of the hormones. The first hormone to be released during pregnancy is human chorionic gonadotropin hormone. This is the first hormone released during pregnancy. Released during pregnancy. You can also tell it's the earliest hormone released during pregnancy. So first hormone released by a pregnant woman will be HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin hormone, released by the developing embryo, that is the trophoblast cell itself, especially since I showed. So HCG. What is its function as? It is going to stimulate the corpus luteum. As you all know, for pregnancy to continue, a hormone is essential. That hormone is progesterone. Now, progesterone can be released by corpus luteum only when LH is at high concentration. But what happens is LH drop occurs after the luteal phase. So then what happens? HCG will take over the function of the LH. That means LH will now, uh, when the LH is less, the HCG will stimulate the corpus luteum so that it will continue to release the progesterone and so that the pregnancy will continue. Okay, so that is to maintain the pregnancy. So therefore, this one is also released by the placenta. HCG, the one that stimulates the corpus luteum to produce the progesterone, is also released by the placenta. The next is human chorionic somatomamotropin. The hormone human chorionic somatomamotropin. Formerly, it was called as human placental lactogen. So this is important for it. It has an important role in say metabolism. It will help in increasing glucose concentration, especially when the mother is starving. Also, still the glucose supply is maintained to the fetus due to this hormone. So these are some of the functions of the hormones. Then next is progesterone and estrogen. These two hormones, they are necessary for the what you call development of the fetus. Progesterone, you know, it will help in maintenance of pregnancy, and both together ultimately help in development of fetus. They will help in development of the fetus. Okay. Then there's a hormone, say relaxin. So you'll know in a female reproductive system, the lower part of the uterus, this is called as the cervix and the birth canal. Cervix and the birth canal together, they are called as the birth canal. So when the fully developed fetus is ejected outside, that's called as parturition. For parturition to occur, the cervix should widen. And also what should happen is the bone that is present, the joint that is present in this will be the pubic symphysis, which are part of the coxal bones. The loosening of this joint occurs due to this relaxin. As a result, even widening of cervix occur. So what happens is the delivery process occurs very easy. So that is the function of relaxin. So apart from this, the placenta can, that is the function, loosening as well as widening of the loosening and the widening of the cervix occurs due to relaxin. So placenta can also secrete hormones like thyroxine and cortisol and prolactin. So these also have metabolic role. That means whatever the metabolic reactions occur inside the fetus, they have the role, take part in metabolism. Because of the placenta secreting all these hormones, it will be called as what? The endocrine gland. That to what kind of a gland? It is called as a temporary endocrine gland. Remember, because placenta itself is a temporary structure. So to act as endocrine gland also, it will be a temporary endocrine gland. Okay. So because of the hormones released. So these are the hormones. Out of this, you should remember this one. The first hormone to be released by the pregnant woman. When this hormone is released, it can be detected in the urine of woman, and this becomes the basis of pregnancy test kits. Okay, so this completes topic placenta, explaining about what a placenta is and what is its function, and which are different names by which it is known, also in different ways in which it is also known.